Greetings fellow gamers and welcome to the final countdown of Kirby Month, and we couldn't possibly end it on a better topic. Kirby is quickly on the rise to being one of my favorite video game franchises. Playing Kirby games always makes me really stinking happy, and they're all great. To this day, I honestly don't think there has ever been a legitimately bad Kirby game. Yes, you heard me right. For nearly 30 years and 35 games in the Kirby series, none of them have ever been objectively bad. That is seriously a very impressive feat that most franchises can't even compete with. Kirby games don't really change or innovate anything in their respective genres, but instead they're just really fun games that I'd highly recommend to anyone. In fact, I got 10 games that are just like that. There are no rules for this list. Main series or spin-offs doesn't matter. As long as they put a big smile on my face, they're eligible for this list, which means every single game to come out of this series is fair game. So let's get started. This is my top 10 favorite Kirby games. Let's get it on! Sometimes I seriously question what goes on through developers' minds when making spin-offs like these. Are they on drugs? Using their minds of their own free will? Or are they just secretly sadist? I'm leaning more towards the former, because how did they even come up with this stuff? Knowing they had a natural talent for creating unique concepts and gameplay mechanics, HAL had a lot of potential and knew exactly what they wanted to do when they were first shown the DS. But the strange yet charming concept of Kirby Mass Attack isn't the only thing that makes me really like this game with a weird feeling in my head. Sure, an evil sorcerer splits Kirby into 10 even when he was not minding anyone's business, giving us a gameplay overhaul in the process, but this game also has no copy abilities that even show. Okay? But what Kirby can do now is this. Sure, okay, yeah. Never mind swallowing your enemies into an abyss, just beat them up to death. Nope, that is not a joke. Also, like its big brother Canvas Curse, this game pushes the limitations of the DS through the roof. Mass Attack straight up makes love with the DS touchscreen, as that it is the only way to move, throw multiple Kirbys at your enemies, as well as, kind of getting a similar addictive appeal to Pikmin. Hurling pink blobs of destruction at enemies, structures, fucking anything. Literally wiping the entirety of Dreamland clean off your own blood-curdled hands. But the best part about this game is that it's not completely mindless. You got some puzzle solving, management with your squad, and some really fun sub-games with phenomenal sprite work for DS standards. So yeah, this game is vastly strange and different compared to every other Kirby game, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, I for one appreciate with how different this installment got. With some gameplay overhauls that surprisingly worked, pretty great aesthetic, addicting sub-games, some awesome boss battles, and the immense satisfaction of, well, there's no other subtle way to say this, gang-banging your enemies, Kirby Mass Attack is definitely the strangest Kirby game to date. But that's perfectly fine with me. Never have I ever thought that such a pretty and cutesy arts and crafts final project would be the biggest embodiment of haters gonna hate for Kirby. Sorry, but I'm not most fans. If you seriously have to go out of your way to bash on Kirby's epic yarn, then this for real must be your day job, and I got one thing to say. Fuck you. This game. My god, this game. Can we just agree and say cutest Kirby game ever? I sure can. The aesthetics and art style are most definitely the highlight of this game. The designers really felt like they were going for a major wow feeling when making this game. With the entire world literally looking like the inside of a scrapbook completely made of crafts materials, it's mostly unlike anything we've ever seen in an art style before. Yoshi's Story and Paper Mario notwithstanding. And speaking of Paper Mario, it kinda gave me that Paper Mario vibe where everything looks like it's from a crafts store. But because of this new artistic world, gameplay comes together to make an impressively fun platformer. In this game, Kirby can't inhale and swallow his enemies like normal, Instead, Kirby must make use of his new yarn lasso and multiple transformations to yoink his enemies to death, as well as manipulate and fiddle with his new gorgeous environment. The transformations are especially fun to use, as they all have their own purpose and attributes. Some of these transformations include a car, a large weight, a pendulum, and a giant freaking tank. The music for this game is filled with beautiful original compositions and amazing remixes. Seriously, every time I listen to a song from this OST, I feel so relaxed, and that's really a good thing. Unfortunately, this game does have its flaws. The fact that you can't die in this game makes Yoshi's Story look like a ball-bustingly hard NES game. The bosses for the most part are pretty weak, and the story is rather generic. I mean, which Kirby game isn't? But why would I care about all these flaws when I have so much fun with a gorgeous art style and good altered gameplay to boot? In short, I feel like a lot of developers could take notes about Epic Yarn. You don't need flashy graphics or a realistic setting to make a game great. All you need is imagination. Take notes, developers. It's strange now that I think about it. When everyone started making the transition from 2D to 3D, Mario, Sonic, Metroid, weird how Kirby decided not to. Come on into the 3D world, it's fantastic! And you know what? I think I'm gonna have to get back to you on that. Kirby don't need open world gimmicks when Kirby 64 is the one rebel who can stand tall by himself. I ain't afraid of y'all.
Noah! Larry, what the hell are you doing?
Larry!
Larry, you can't just... Oh,
Larry! Oh, are you alright? How did...
Larry!
Kirby's first main series platformer on a
3D
console is definitely the most unique main series title to date. You don't see anyone else trying to be this brave, especially when it comes to the copy abilities. Bah phooey. Who needs a sword, hammer, or a laser beam visor when I can mix two to become one and morph myself into a bow and sell these fire arrows, third degree burn my scalp and become a literal fireball, or turn into a fridge and kill my enemies with food?
Excuse me, what?
It's absolutely insane. The idea of combining copy abilities to get those oddly charming powers is such a delight. Need I remind you that this is still the best innovation to Kirby bar none? This is also when Kirby Games decided to make their storytelling more charming and funny that it honestly leaves myself more engaged than with some of the biggest cutscene spectacles. The graphics for this game makes it look like a very proud drawing in art class, and that it makes the game even more charming than it really should. It's all simple, but effective. Works for me. Another thing that works for me? The bosses. A lot of these guys kick ass and have very fun fights. I especially love the HRH, Zero Two, and Miracle Matter fights. And because the gameplay is centered around a
2D
perspective when everyone wants to be in
3D.
this game literally gives the innovative analog stick the fat middle finger, as you can only control Kirby with the D-pad. Pretty sure the up directional button on the D-pad is the middle finger. Unfortunately, not everything here is bright and magical. The selection of solo abilities and how they play are kind of weak sauce compared to the combo abilities. The levels play out themselves sometimes, and how you have to collect every single crystal shard to get the true final boss gives me a guide game feeling, and I really don't like that. But this is one of those games where I can replay it every time and always feel like a kid again. Well, seems like that didn't take too long. Even though this has been the so-called renaissance of Kirby starting on a 3DS, I'm starting to notice the series is starting to spin its wheels just a little bit. I mean, hell, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but it doesn't hurt to add a little something different to spice things up. Take the latest entry, Kirby Star Allies, as a prominent example of what I mean, for better and for worse. This game offers us some of the greatest, but at the same time has some flaws holding it back. It took a few updates, but Kirby fans can honestly look past the resemblance to the last few core titles, as the Switch's entry to Kirby definitely delivers some classic fun with loads of fan service to go with it. I'm surprised it took this long for a series like this to shove the whole friendship theme down our throats.
Mr. Kdog, that's called cute little nuzzling.
Don't care what it's called when we just invited the entire gang to the party. Animal friends, Mark, Scooey, Adeline and Ribbon, Dark Meta Knight, Darroach, Taranza, Susie, and of course, Magalore!
These dream friends taste so good.
Hold the mayo. Playing as all these characters with their movesets that make them look like they can work for Smash, put them all in Sakurai, is not only such a blast, but they're very fleshed out as playable characters. Hell, they're all so fun I plan on making a video of my favorite dream friends from this game. Patience, everyone. Patience. Believe me when I say that multiplayer has never been better till now. Need I remind you that the ability roster this time around is incredibly tight. I love the new ones like Artist, Spider, and Staff, and thank you so much, Hal, for bringing back Cleaning, Yo-Yo, Beetle, and Water. Combine all this with some really fun combo elemental fusions with other abilities like in Kirby 64 and Squeak Squad, and the adorably charming friend actions when you have 3 allies. Seriously, this is so cute. We finally get the Kirby game I'm sure a lot of us have wanted for a long time. This sounds amazing. Why isn't it higher? Well, not only is this one of the easiest Kirby games ever, with pathetically easy enemy interaction and puzzles that answer themselves, but like I said before, the devs are clearly starting to spin their wheels a bit, and that can be a little worrying. But despite my gripes, it doesn't deter me from replaying Star Allies any day of the week.
Is it ruffians? Thugs? Have they come for me?
Stay calm. It can probably smell fear.
Shh! Did you hear that? It sounded like a rat in my closet. I suppose you all were waiting for me to panic like an elephant, huh? Kirby Squeak Squad has got to be my most polarizing Kirby game I've had to rank for this list. I love all of the different things they incorporated to this DS installment, but at the same time, there are things holding it back. But one thing at a time, starting with what I loved. I really enjoy how this game's story makes it feel like a 1-hour cartoon episode. Kirby races through various worlds to the edge of the galaxy as he encounters some new rodent baddies, dresses up in funny costumes, and defeats the darkness for a single piece of cake.
It is a gift.
It's dumb, and I love it. These new mousy bandits add color, charisma, and flair to an already charming package. Praise Lord Darroach! The boss fights are also great, and that says something coming from the Kirby series. I also love the idea and execution of ability scrolls. Expanding the movesets of classic copy abilities with these scrolls make it an incentive to try your best and collect all the chests, not only containing these scrolls, but extra goodies like spray paints for Kirby. It's great. And I feel these are more fun to try and grab because they're more lenient and are not a requirement to get to the final boss. And even the new flagship abilities, while not the best, do have their own charming perks about them. Magic's silly attacks, Bubble's charm and cute-ish hell costume, Ghost's ingenious concept, Metal's, and Animal's small little details. Ah, that itch was killing me! And even the gimmick of the inventory system involving bubbles was a neat and interesting way to use the DS's touchscreen. You know, it kinda sucks that this game has flaws that, to me, hold this game back despite how much I love this game. The visual resemblance of its predecessors is borderline insulting, the level design is a little too generic, and the entire package, to me, isn't as fleshed out as well as the top 5. Regardless, Kirby Squeak Squad is still a very worthy entry into this franchise. Glad I paid my respects for these first 5, now we get to gushing! Yeah, now we're talking! An inspiring influencer can come from a lot of things, but this has to be one of the biggest influencers in any video game franchise. I'm sure everyone was expecting this one to be on the list, it was only a matter of where it would be. Kirby Superstar Ultra does everything well that made the original an iconic classic and optimizes its fun factor for the newer gaming generation. What makes Kirby Superstar, and by extension its remake, stand out in the Kirby series is how the gameplay is structured. Usually, Kirby games are very straightforward, linear, and go by a level-by-level basis. This bad boy decides to take things in a different direction with a little minigame collection, each of them having their own tiny gimmick to them. Milky Way Wishes with its copy essences and fun storyline, Gourmet Race's silly charm, Dynablade's board game-like locales, Great Cave Offensive's exploration and treasure hunting, Revenge of Mennonite's straightforward and rapid adventure, and of course the arena's boss rush. Even more in Superstar Ultra, where we can destroy everyone in our path as Mennonite, play as enemies, and of course the introduction of the true arena. Combine all that with some amazing sprite work, some of the most iconic Kirby material to date, some pretty good looking cutscenes for DS standards, and even its own gag reel. My god, this game has a buttload of content. How on earth they fit all this in a single DS cartridge is beyond me. And let's not forget, this is the game that was all about the copy abilities. Most new Kirby games add 3, maybe 4 new abilities. This amazing chunky chode added 12! With some of them becoming some of the most iconic abilities in Kirby history, like Fighter. But they didn't just add these new abilities and called it a day. No. In past games, when you had an ability, you'd only do like, what? One thing? Not even giving you a cute hat? Now when you swallow these innocent animals down your infinite stomach, you now gain access to entirely new playstyles. You can now do so much with one ability. It's absolutely crazy. It set the Kirby standard for the rest of the series to follow, and I respect that. This all sounds amazing. Is this game perfect? Yeah, probably. And this is giving praise to a game that isn't even in the top 3. Fuck, I love Kirby games. Quite a delicate package we got here. Wait, Kirby, that doesn't mean you get to eat the package! Why do I even bother? The 3DS constantly struggled for seeking an original 2D platformer, but nothing could prepare us for what was to come, and nothing could have been better than this. Kirby Triple Deluxe was the game that made me appreciate the 3DS more, and I love it for that. First off, I just want to appreciate how nice this game looks. It's not trying to push the 3DS hardware to its limit or anything, but for just looking nice, this game looks so clean. This look to the game also appeals to my inner 2D platformer fanboy with the genius depth of the level design. Quite literally. Okay, so the atmospheres themselves aren't too special, but that doesn't really matter when you got levels that contain multiple planes and attacks that come out of the background. It's definitely genius when the level design is taking advantage of the 3DS's unique capabilities. The bosses do this too, with particular mentioning to Flowery Woods and Paintra for being a little creative with this in mind. I also really enjoy collecting all the sunstones and keychains throughout the levels, as not only are they not a requirement to beat the game, but they're also put in places that aren't too difficult or too easy to collect them all. It's the perfect balance of being tricky but not too far away, and I appreciate that when it comes to the collectibles. And like I said in a previous video, this game has my all-time favorite lineup of new copy abilities. Circus, Bell, Archer, and Beetle. All of them are very special in their own way, and I love all 4 of them. And let us not forget the flagship Hypernova ability, which is even on the box art of the game. I found this to be a really neat gimmick, as it gave some pretty fun puzzles. The story is also one in the Kirby series that I find to be one of the more interesting in the series, especially when it comes to Taranza. And oh god, somebody at HAL decided to melt my heart because these cutscenes are so adorable and funny. Just look at this cute little puffball acting like a cartoon character. It's so priceless. Don't lie to me, you all thought the same thing. While Triple Deluxe does play it safe in some aspects and Hypernova may feel intrusive at times, but having this genius level design and fun factor easily make up for that in spades. Time for a little shocker. Yeah, I just went there. Return to Dreamland, the fan favorite, not #1?
You are a worthless, friendless, faggot-lipped little piece of shit whose mommy left daddy when she figured out he wasn't Eugene O'Neill, and who is now weeping and slobbering all over my drum set like a fucking 9-year-old girl.
Yeah, blasphemy, I know. But allow me to make my case, alright? Return to Dreamland has given us some of the best things we have ever seen from the Kirby series. But there is a couple choices that made me question why they were even made, but we'll get to those in a bit. What makes Return to Dreamland a fan favorite? First off, the story is pretty ambitious compared to the rest of the series, with an unknown being appearing in Popstar and Kirby decides to help. Sounds simple at first, but what makes it ambitious is the big twist. I won't spoil it, but let's just say things go down at the turning point of the story. Second, this game revitalized old abilities more than Superstar and has one of my favorite lineups of new abilities. Don't care much for Whip, but the other three, Leaf, Water, and Spear, are some of my favorites. Third, the soundtrack. My god, this soundtrack is incredible, all the way from Cookie Country to Crowned, and for a series like Kirby, that says a lot. And finally, how important it is, not just for the series, but with my respect for the series. The turn of a new decade meant all new graphics, high-end orchestrated soundtracks, cinematic executions with story and tone, and goes far beyond an overall polish that can't even be compared. It was the perfect gateway to Kirby's modern renaissance as it strived to improve and expand on everything. Better executed storytelling and emotional connections, the abilities like I already mentioned, escalating the fun factor with multiplayer that actually gives us benefits, and the overall expansion on the Kirby universe with a brand new cosmic world. It's so awe-inspiring. This is also the point where I gave the Kirby series much more respect. At first, I thought they were colorfully fun time killers, nothing special. But now, I see this series as a true work of art. Kirby didn't just come back, he was reborn. Call me cheesy all you like, but that's really how I feel. Of course, Return to Dreamland isn't perfect. The super abilities may be awesome, but they truly aren't multiplayer friendly. The boss roster has its duds, and I felt that the entire package didn't leave as much of an impact as my top 2 did. But still, I'll always cherish Return to Dreamland every single time I press start. Mida on the wall, who is the fairest of them all? Don't make me repeat the joke, dumbass. Oh my, what a fascinating adventure I must have. Just let me shatter. I wholeheartedly believe I must be the fairest of them all. You are only #2, now you can break me. Well then, in all seriousness, one thing I value a lot with Kirby games is replay value. Many Kirby games offer this, but to this day, this is the Kirby game I have spent the most hours with, and the one I find to be massively underappreciated. Kirby and the Amazing Mirror is a glorious gem that I feel like people aren't appreciating as much as it should be. It's kind of funny since when I first played it as a kid, still got my copy today, I didn't love everything about this game as much as I do now. The first thing that I couldn't fully grasp on back then but admire so much now is the concept of Amazing Mirror. The levels are big, open environments rather than a set number of levels and an end goal. Sure, there's paths and boss fights that act like end goals, but the ability to explore an actual world is something a Kirby game has yet to replicate. There's a bunch of different pathways and treasure to collect, it's all such a novel experience. Gives me the overall satisfaction of a good old Metroidvania title. Outside of this game's amazing gimmick, it's a solid Kirby game in all areas. The aesthetics feel a lot more, how do I put it, moodier than other Kirby games? What I mean is that the levels in Amazing Mirror feel more different than other Kirby games while using the usual level trope. And I feel like that's mainly because of the exploration gimmick, and I really love that. Something else Amazing Mirror nails is the soundtrack. It's catchy, bouncy, full of energy, and it's just a joy to listen to. The boss themes are especially amazing. And finally, this is one of the Kirby games I have played the most. Ever since I was a kid around age 6 when I got this game, even if I didn't admire it as much as I do now, I still really enjoyed every second of this game. Yes, this game is not perfect. The new collection of abilities are weak, and no, I don't count Smash as an ability. Most of the bosses are pathetic, and multiplayer, while setting the standard, is a little underwhelming. But at the end of the day, this is the most fun I've had with a Kirby game, and that's why Amazing Mirror is at number 2. It does everything in the Kirby formula very well, despite technically not being in the style of a Kirby game. If you had this game, I highly recommend you give it another chance. It might just surprise you. And yet... By process of elimination and how this list has been going, I'm sure you all know what my favorite Kirby game is. So, I present to you the greatest Kirby game of all time. That's right. My favorite Kirby game of all time, which I changed the order of this list when scripting by the way, is Kirby Planet Robobot. I feel like what sets this game apart from Return to Dreamland and Amazing Mirror was how refreshing it felt to play this game, and to be fair, a lot of it came down to the aesthetic. I just really loved how the mechanical override of Dreamland took a neat change to the usual level tropes we experience in a Kirby game. Yes, you have a grass, desert, and water level, but they aren't just a grass, desert, and water level. The aesthetic really excels in making the level design really stand out compared to other Kirby games, like also having a town level, a musically themed level, and the final area being a giant factory level. It made the code cubes and stickers, similar to Triple Deluxe's Sunstones and keychains, feel worth it to collect. The 3 new copy abilities this time around were all really fun for their own reasons. Poison is a fucking boss destroyer, ESP was very interesting and had its fun puzzles, and Doctor was just so silly I couldn't help but chuckle a bit every time it showed on my screen. And if you want to know how to make a gimmick for your game, take a look at this one, because this is how you do it! Because the Robobot armor is freaking awesome and amazing. It not only makes you feel more powerful, it not only combines with your copy abilities to add further variety to the gameplay, but it is also thematically appropriate, with the whole game centered around the idea, is relevant to the story as Dreamland is mechanically mechanized with bosses that not only knock others out of the park, but also take on a more mechanical approach, and is organically and consistently incorporated into the gameplay. It's not just this big super attack that brainlessly solves puzzles for you like the super abilities or Hypernova. It's an expansion of the normal gameplay, and I adore that. Last thing I want to point out is the soundtrack. This has to be my favorite soundtrack in Kirby history, simply for being so on point with the aesthetic of the game. It not only sounds fitting, but it also plays brilliantly with leitmotif, as the Haltman theme is sprinkled throughout the entire OST. It's just brilliant! One last thing, fuck you, Hal. You made me feel things for a goddamn mech suit. Look at it. It's crying.
Because I'm telling you that I felt like I'd just gotten like my world rocked. It's like, are you crying?
What's that?
Are you crying?
Am I crying? No, I'm not crying. You're crying.
It's okay to cry. People cry.
What more could be said? Planet Robobot is, in my mind, the perfect Kirby game. It encompasses everything we love about Kirby with an amazing aesthetic, outstanding gameplay gimmick, fantastic OST, and boss fights that have the right amount of fun and difficulty. All of this makes Kirby Planet Robobot my favorite Kirby game of all time. This has been Kdog. I hope you all have a great day, and thank you all for watching Kirby Month. Next time, I got a different kind of video for you all. Until then, see you all next time.